most of RPGs out there is a consensus or at least some similarity to how stats work and what they are for. Souls-likes, while they share some kind of similarity, they are quite complex and follow different mechanics than those you find in your traditional RPGs. Today I am going to show you how they work, how do they connect between the games and slight differences between them as well. That way you will be much more prepared to tackle on to Elden Ring when it finally comes out. What is up, you damn gorgeous and beautiful gamers? Welcome back to Role-Playing James. Before we move on with the video, I would very much like to kindly ask that you spam me a like on the video and a sub on the channel as well if you haven't already. That being said, let's move on with the matter at hand. First, some slight recommendations. Going back to the RPG pipeline, the most common mistake is to assume what stats do when you level up in Dark Souls games and start allocating points randomly because they seem important. Another beginner mistake is to use points everywhere because, like I said, all of the stats seem important to you at first sight. So for example, I have seen many a time friends that I introduced to the series say something like, "Oh, I'm going to be a melee character, so I should place some points into strength to increase my damage." Thing is that strength is not going to natively increase your physical damage. Never it's going to be the case like it does in most of the RPGs out there. So let us start there. Strength, dexterity, intelligence, and fate. Different weapons scale their damage from these stats. The scaling goes from S being the higher scaling to A, B, C, D, and up to E being the lower scaling. Like I said, S being the higher damage scaling, very important, and E the lowest. So, a weapon might have an S or an A scaling on intelligence. A two-handed sword, for example. And since it is a two-handed sword, you might think that placing points into strength will increase your physical weapon damage. That is not the case. If the weapon scales on intelligence, your damage increase will come from placing points into intelligence. The higher the value, the better scaling. If you have a great sword with B scaling on dexterity and E on strength, it will increase the damage better by allocating points into dexterity, not on strength, even if it looks like a big-ass sword. Then you have the quality weapons. The ideal quality weapon is a B into strength or B into dexterity, or B into fate and B in intelligence. You can also have a C scaling on each and every single one of the stats, or a C on two of them. Whenever you have this kind of scaling in the stats, that is where you want to be allocating your points. Now, you can get your stats up to 99. However, once you get past the 40 or 50 threshold, depending on the game, the stat scaling damage increase or effectiveness starts to deplete. That is why when you play from soft games, you want your stats only on 40 to 50 and then move on with the next stats of your build. So that said, if you are using a weapon with S scaling on strength, once you get your strength to 40 or 50, you should stop allocating points in strength because you already have reached the most effective damage augment, and you should focus your leveling on other stats. And this is why, on the other hand, quality weapon might have B scaling on strength and B scaling on dexterity, and can benefit from having 80 points, 80 levels, since you're going to allocate points both on strength and dexterity for that specific weapon. Which is why, at some extent, if the scaling is good enough independently, having a quality weapon can be much better than having an S scaling weapon, depending on how much levels are you planning in investing in your build. S scaling weapon is only going to allow you to get 40 to 50. The quality weapon it's going to benefit from having 80 points, or depending on how much scaling does it has on the main stats. Now let us go through stat importance. Your top priority is always going to be your weapon scaling based stat, which can be either strength, dexterity, intelligence, or fate. Also luck on specific builds for Dark Souls 3, but that is another thing that's a matter for another video. And then we have the rest of the stats. Divided on three main souls, the three main Dark Souls, they divide mainly on vitality, HP. Very important, you need that HP to withstand the enemy's attacks. It has different names, some of the Dark Souls, but it's easily recognizable. Then you have stamina. In Dark Souls, this was linked with carry weight. On the same level of importance, stamina needs quite a lot of attention. Your means of attack, defend, and dodge is going to depend on it. You need stamina Although, if you're mindful and thoughtful strategic players, usually 25 to 30 points here will be enough in most games. That is what I mostly run with, 20 even. Then we have carry weight. The more you have, the heavier gear can you use properly without fat rolling. We can discuss about fat rolling a little bit deeper in another video because it's quite a complicated thing divided in the different games. Although it is not only needed to use heavy armor. Sometimes you might fat roll with medium armor, so placing points here will help alleviate that, but you should place points here only to be able to use the gear and roll as you desire to. Attunement is present on all of the 3 main Dark Souls. Determines how many spells can you cast. It will work a little bit different on some of the Dark Souls. For example, in some games might actually give you a little bit more cast uses. In some others it will just allow you to use different spells. It's very important for casters. Then we have the special specific stats. In Dark Souls we had the resistance stat. Useless as men nipples, not even worth speaking about it, stay the hell away from it. Dark Souls 2 had adaptability, which increased your iframes by dodging. Unnecessary mechanic, but it is what it is. Mandatory stat to properly be able to dodge enemy attacks in Dark Souls 2, which is why, and this was one of the mechanics that Dark Souls 2 was hated the most. Yeah, I love Dark Souls 2 anyways. And then we have Dark Souls 3, Luck, which affected the RNG for enemy drops, although it could also scale hollow weapons so you could use it for specific builds. I would not use it separately outside from it though. That is everything you need to know about stats and weapon scaling in Souls games. Now you're ready to tackle onto Elden Ring and not mess up your first character. Like always, if you enjoyed the information, if you find this stuff useful, do please spare me a like in the video and a subscription as well. I sometimes post interesting stuff here on the channel. There's weekly videos. If no one has told you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person, then you are indeed a gorgeous, beautiful person. That is all for today, guys. I'll see you, them gorgeous and beautiful people, in the next one. Do remember that it is important that you stay safe out there. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.